Says this Wednesday, my kids who are 5 and 7 were about to go to my parents for 5 days holiday, which is Wednesday to Sunday, due to their birthday. Now, mid-time, a slot in a summer house for a Saturday, Sunday, where my daughters asked me to go for over a year, appeared. Now, at first, we didn't consider it, but when my mother proposed or announced that they wanted to come to us for a barbecue on Saturday, we decided not to host the barbecue and instead go to the summer house. Yesterday, when I said it to my mother, she replied with a cold, fine. When we returned home, I received a text message saying, after thinking it through, we're cancelling the girls' holiday at our home. We understand that everybody is more important than we are. In this moment, my heart broke since I knew how much my girls were looking forward to this. So, in effect, I called my mother and asked her to explain to crying grandkids why they won't go for a holiday. Immediately, my stepfather took over the phone and told me to turn off the speaker and go to another room. He didn't want to listen to me, just elaborate on being a piece of shit for using my kids in an argument. Okay, this I agree, but having no respect for my mother and caring about everybody else but them. After 8 minutes of this monologue, the call ended and I smashed a hole in the wall with my fist. I was unpleasant to my wife when she wanted to help, told her that he's right, I'm a shitty son and an even worse father, using the kids as an argument. The event killed lots of joy in me. I'm trying to work on my emotions. It's very hard for me to climb to higher states of consciousness. And we still haven't talked with her since, but she sent me a short video with a quote. Success is when your kids want to hang out with you when you are an adult, and I want to hang out with them, but I don't. Does this make sense? Anyone ever experienced a version of this kind of inter-family drama at some point? There's so much going on in here. There's your classic guilt, there's projections, there's all sorts. But how many people here, just by a quick wave of hands, have gone through the Quantum Alignment Foundation program? Not many of you. Okay, what we're describing here is those guys would understand. There's a classic, what we call egregore. And an egregore, by its very nature, has a built-in level of escalation when it comes to conflict. It's something I do 4 hours of training on in that program, so I don't want to get too much into it here. But essentially, this is not about you. It's not about your ability to be a son or a father at all. So throw that out. What we've got here is a somewhat elderly couple, a same mom and dad, grandma and granddad, who had an unmet expectation. And as a result of that, because obviously we're going to meet people in our lives that have unmet expectations, right? And in their movie with their grandkids all happy and expecting, and then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled and you've made a good decision. It's like they've been waiting for over a year. Let's go do that and not host the barbecue. And what does grandpa and grandma do? Well, clearly we're not important. It triggers which fear, ladies and gentlemen? The fear that they're not good enough, not important enough, not relevant enough. Fill in the blank. There's a version of that being triggered. Now, depending on the level of consciousness, something we're going to be diving a lot more into in the advanced modules, that would then trip, especially around the sort of pride aspect, and if there's an identity aspect in there as well, which there is when it comes to grandparents, it triggers essentially what we would call I'm offended. There's a pride reaction. And so therefore, that is prime grounds for being hooked by an egregore. And if you can imagine, we also call them pendulums after Vadim Zeland, for those that have read Transurfing. And essentially, if you imagine a wrecking ball on a chain, the old wrecking balls that used to knock down buildings with, you're walking down the street, you're doing something totally innocuous and normal, you're not provoking anyone, you've got no ill will or bad intention, and the next minute, boom, this wrecking ball comes and whacks you straight in the side. That could be an unprovoked comment. It could be somebody else's projection of their fear, or whatever it may be. The natural tendency at that point is to do what specifically? All right? Oh, sorry about the noise. But the natural tendency at that point is to do what? Put it in the chat. What is the absolute natural tendency? There you go. Yeah, it's push back. It's a reaction. You've just been pushed. Oh, whoa, hang on. You push back. Now, next question. Egregores 101. What happens if you push back on a pendulum or a wrecking ball? What's the only thing it can do? It's the only thing it can do. Does it suddenly stop and say, something, you were right, I shouldn't have pushed you, I'm just going to stay still? No, laws of physics don't work that way. It comes back with equal or greater force. That is the start of 90+% of the arguments and conflicts in your life. And when you understand the energetic rules that surround egregores and knowing better how to collapse them or how to avoid them, it's a game changer, which is why QAFC is such a powerful program. Now, in this scenario, the egregore, and I don't want to get into too much advanced stuff here, but they know your weak spots. It's like mosquitoes. They don't bite you on the elbow or the scalp, right? Where do they bite you? They bite you on a nice, fleshy, juicy part. So they can suck. You don't blame mosquitoes for it. It's what they do. But ultimately, egregores, just like electricity knows the path of least resistance, somehow egregores know which buttons will push to generate the most emotional conflict somehow. In this case, the kind of text message that, Granny sent back. Now, the big lesson here, without diving into it, is to understand that a lot of this can be solved with the right level of communication and context. Because if you would have taken time, and again, this isn't a guarantee, depends on people's level of perception and their level of consciousness. If you'd taken time, say, hey, Mom, I need your help on something, right? I know we're going to come for a barbecue, invite you over. Look, the kids have been waiting for a year for this. It's just opened up. I know it would mean the world to them. Yeah. Would you rather them have their, something that lights them up and then come over to see you? Or would you mind, pausing it for a second? Or would you think it would be worth waiting another year in case something comes up? I'm going to throw them over. Let them feel guilty if they want to choose themselves. But ultimately, what you're doing is setting context. Because without that, people will jump in with their fear as a negatively biased assumption, especially generation of that age which grew up thinking that BBC or CNN was the truth, thinking that newspapers are something you need to read to know what's going on in the world, to believe that anyone with a white coat, you should take whatever they give you. That's the generation that has that level of programming. And it's important to understand that, because anyone that has gone through 50s, 60s, 70s, as a experience before consciousness started rising and people started waking up, have been conditioned for decades to think negative before positive. And that's what the media will do for you. It is a brain entrainment to build the negative first. It overstimulates the amygdala. You've heard me talk about this. That's the business model, right? So if all of a sudden they get an unmet expectation, which is where 99% of stress comes from, the negative fills the gap first, which is usually triggered at some level of the onion to the primary fear. And at that point, a conflict arises. A reaction is then formed, a pendulum hooks on, and you get a wrecking ball, which you turn around, right? And then fire back on. And when cortisol rises, finish the sentence, intelligence plummets. Right? You weren't really trying to use your kids as an argument. You'd never do that. But you were offended by you were hurt rather by their reaction. So you tried to justify so that you didn't feel bad. And as a result of that, in a heightened state, you start bringing in, in their perception, the kids as a political pawn on the chessboard, which your dad then sees and jumps up and then throws the wrecking ball back. Can anybody spot a pattern? Now, time's a great healer. But I've seen relationships irrepaired for decades because somebody wouldn't pick up the phone first. Here's where human to human acts a lot better. Mom, Dad, listen, I love you. I'm sorry for what went down. And so I should have probably asked your opinion on whether we should have gone there first. But the kids were so excited about it, and I was so excited about it. I thought we could do barbecue with the grandparents anytime because they love you to bits. But yeah, I should have checked in. I should have asked what you thought. I should have brought you along so we could all enjoy it together. Yeah, hey, listen, I screw up. Not perfect. Yeah, when can I bring them over? They died a seed. Something along those lines. Right? And they may want to internally, and by the way, expect this from some people. They may say, no, this is their internal dialogue. Yeah, he hasn't suffered enough yet. We're going to leave it another week. Right? If that's the game people want to play, remember, people can only ever project from the place they're at. The moment we forget that and we start expecting us from everybody else, life is going to send us a brick wall to hit our head against in the form of a friend or relative. Right? We've all been there. But usually communication is a strong point. Now you're going to learn a lot about communication around archetypes in module 9 because it's easy for the warrior to get triggered when really the high conscious magician was the person that should have stepped forward under the guise of the sovereign. And if none of that makes sense, it will do next time we speak.